What's driving your decisions these days? Welcome back to episode 3 of the Prolific Shift Sunday Sit Down. Remember, we're in season 3, which is kind of a wild time. And every now and again, I'm going to come on here and make these videos. And this segment of Prolific Shifts, which is for the people, any of the people, is meant to offer you a question, something that you can mull over in your week, in the spirit of thinking about ways that we might transform or shift something in our lives. The primary segment of Prolific Shifts is in service to Black educators and Black leaders, and really thinking about how to hold space for professional and personal growth and development in ways that many institutions, many spaces don't make space for in an authentic way. So here we are, episode 3, and we are moving away a little bit from manipulation to starting to think a bit about motivation. So this week's question is, what is driving your decisions? And in parentheses, I put your action versus inaction these days. This is one that I really appreciate. I've asked the question before about like what motivates you? So like, are you motivated by fear or love? And I think I gave a shout out to my good friend Annabelle connected to that. And that's kind of behind this, but I didn't want to limit you to fear or love. So this one is really asking you to think about what's driving your action or inaction. And I also forgot to say, I'm Janae Peters, founder, CEO, all of that stuff for Prolific Shifts. And really, I've just been trying to think about what it looks like to make offerings that don't necessarily tell people what to do, but that really are about collective care, a call for collective inquiry, and sometimes that inquiry that starts with you as an individual and might extend to community. So don't be afraid to ask these questions to your loved ones, to people you care about, your circle, the folks that you keep around you. And that's actually a big part of this question for me. So that question, what is driving your decisions these days, to me is really key. I think there are some times I think we can recognize when we're acting out of character. I think we're starting to like be bolder about recognizing our feelings, like when we feel lonely, when we feel triggered, when we feel like something is charged, when we know that something is about us more than it is about the person we're reacting to. I think we're starting to name that. But what if we took another step back or went to another level of depth in our inquiry around that and really thought about why it is or what's contributing to us doing what we do, whether that's waking up late, waking up early, whatever those decisions are, like what's driving it and how can we use that information in our self-awareness and in our growth. And I have to say, I am fascinated by relationships. Like relationships, I don't mean just like romantic relationships or friendships, but literally how we relate to each other and how that determines our different pathways and outcomes. I am fascinated. This is connected to things like peer pressure. It's connected to the ways we might be like anti-peer anything, like whatever it is that we're doing. It seems to me like when I really think about it, it's usually in reaction to or in anticipation of or wanting to protect from other people. And I think when we actually acknowledge that as something that's driving our decisions, again, whether that's action or inaction, I think we have to like really sit with ourselves with that one. Boundaries, like all of that is I think the way that we have come to learn about it is really connected to others, those kinds of relationships. When I think about this particular question for me, what's driving my decisions, my action versus inaction these days, to me, some of it is time. I'm starting to be hyper aware of, not afraid of, but hyper aware of time. And I'm not playing around these days. Like, I'm like, I don't have time to be doing blank, blank, blank. I don't have time to be messing around about blank, blank, blank. I'm here to do this, and this is what we're doing. And what's super fascinating to me is if I'd asked myself this question, especially as it relates to how I'm in community with others, a few years ago, I might have like told you that what mattered to me most was consistency. And it doesn't matter to me. Consistency is like, what is that even? What matters to me is how folks are bringing intention to their lives, or why they aren't if they aren't, because some people really are about that present moment, and I honor that. But it used to be about consistency, where I'd be like, oh, that's just how such and such person is, and that worked for me for a while. But I find myself these days, and I really think that, again, time is behind this for me. I'm more of the, like, Maya Angelou, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. And I have stopped, like, trying to be there for people who I think in this season of my life, like, can't meet my needs. Like, I used to get tight about it and try to figure out how I could be a better friend or be a better person. But these days I'm just like, they did say that's who they are. And all I can do in this moment is kind of focus on what's within my control. And what's in my control is how I respond. What's in my control is who I keep around me. And that's where we are. So I know that part of what's driving that is, like, really just thinking about the limits of time. I keep trying to figure out, like, what I mean by time when I, even in that offering here, because these aren't like, I don't sit there and say, and then I'm going to talk about time. But when I think of time, I think of how easy it is to take for granted that you have another moment with the person, that you have another day to make it better, because we kind of don't. And I don't mean that to take away from, like, fail forward. If you fail, you have another day to try again. But in relationships with people, there's some ways in which, like, what if you just tried to do the best that you could with what you know that day? Because if we did that, then we wouldn't be so worried. So that's the time I was thinking about, just really not taking for granted that we have another day or another chance, and also not feeling limited by that either. So this week, the hope or the offering for you is that we take some time and take stock of our active and passive decisions and unpack them to see if we like, or if we're down with, or if we're, happy with what's driving our decisions. And if we aren't, that we make a move to shift something. So if I decide this week, you know what, maybe time is not the thing that should be driving, I need to figure out what that shift is and see if that shift is aligned with the things that I value most, my core values, the things that really do motivate me. So let's do that this week and see what we can do. All right, y'all. Peace.